welcome to Scare You to Sleep. I'm your host, Shelby Novak, and I'm here to tell you some true stories sent in by your fellow listeners. Thank you so much for your patience while I took last week mostly off. As I said in the poetry bonus episode, moving was a much lengthier endeavor than I had anticipated, but here we are now. I thought I'd come back with a favorite of the masses, and that is to tell you some true tales of horror and intrigue. Let's begin, shall we? This first submission is from Lauren. Hi, Shelby. If you want, here's a few true scary stories that actually happened to me and my friends. I work in a special education center with some disadvantaged and some disabled children. The other day, two of my workmates and I were talking about what made us believe in the magic-y side of life. The Shire is already pretty witchy and full of stories and legends, but here are three small stories that have a bit of ghost activity. I got a professional carpet cleaner in, and when she walked in my door, having never met me, she said, "There's a man at the top of the stairs." She went on to say she had a little bit of a gift, that the man had a protective energy over me. Then she said, the spirits never speak to her, but he was gesturing for me, doing a silly pose like a strong man, kissing his big bicep. I got a funny feeling, as my grandfather used to be so proud of his physique, even in his old age. The very next day, my aunt sent me a photograph, the last one that had been taken of my grandfather. He was flexing his bicep. She was a stranger who knew nothing about me, and she saw my papa, being nosy and seeing who was at my door to make sure I was all right. My colleague's daughter was starting a new school and was very anxious, so her parents took her for a nice meal the night before. On the drive home, they saw an old lady with a wicker basket with 3 large leeks. Not unusual in a place that's made up of lots of farms, but odd at dusk, crossing the road. The dad slowed down, didn't sound the horn, just waited on her to cross, so all 3 in the car had a chance to see this old lady, slowly moving in front of them. They waved as she got to the other side, but when they turned back to continue waving, she was gone. Not in either field, not back on the road, gone. When JL took her child to school the next morning, she found her coat hook with their individual little pictures to help them identify theirs. Her picture was a wicker basket with 3 big leeks. We think perhaps she just wanted to see if the people in the car were friendly and would wait without irritation, or maybe it's the spirit of someone who was hit and run. The place is called Mossblown, and there was a hit and run on an elderly lady there several years ago. The next one breaks my heart. Be ready to cry. My final colleague says this not only made her believe in spirits, but also made her get into this line of work. When JP was little, she had an imaginary friend. It was a little girl of a similar age, but a little older, and she would talk to JP. After a few months, the talks got darker. JP's mom was scared. Her little girl was saying disturbing things. So she asked to have a sit-down chat with her daughter and the imaginary friend. Her daughter told her, as a sort of interpreter for her friend, the little girl's name, age, what street they lived on, and flat number, and how it used to be a convent before it was apartments. She also said she was neglected and abused, that the nuns who looked after her didn't feed her and would hit her, and that she thought she had died from malnutrition. My friend was this little girl, saying things she couldn't possibly have heard. Her mother was shocked, but talked to the little girl as if she was there in person on that chair, but telling her it wasn't her fault. She had been dealt a horrible hand, but she hoped she could find peace. And she said the next day, her imaginary friend was gone. It's like this little girl just wanted to have her story told from her perspective just once and really be listened to. That's why JP is working with social services now, to stop anything happening like that again and to make sure lots of children live the life that poor little girl never got to. That's it. That's why I firmly believe in spirits and that they can communicate with us with the right help. Thank you so much, Lauren. That was beautiful. That really was a beautiful little set of stories. And, so many of them that we get are scary, and that was lovely. All three of them were lovely. Thank you. Next is a very quick but very eerie submission from Chadley. When I was 17, I lived with my mom, but I would spend weekends at my dad's house, about 30 minutes away. One weekend, I brought my cat along because he had a vet appointment. My dad's house was on family land and was fairly new, but sometimes odd things happened there, which we usually shrugged off. That Friday after school, I picked up my cat and some weekend essentials and drove to my dad's. The evening was uneventful, with a typical dinner out and possibly a movie, though I can't recall the details. The strange occurrences started at bedtime. My cat was with me, and I had some music playing softly. Suddenly, my cat began meowing in a way I'd never heard before, sounding really stressed. At the same time, my cassette tape began to malfunction, emitting a creepy noise. When I sat up to check on my cat and the tape, I caught sight of a shadowy figure in the living room, visible from my room. The figure looked like a woman dancing, but not in a modern way. Her movements were rhythmic and deliberate, reminiscent of a Native American dance around a fire, perhaps part of a ritual. This sight terrified me, so I grabbed my cat and hurried to my dad's room, passing the kitchen where utensils were mysteriously falling into the sink as if pushed by an unseen hand. I explained what happened to my dad and stepmom, but the rest of the night was quiet. However, odd incidents continued for weeks. One particularly unsettling event was the pantry door opening on its own. This door had a French door handle, so you could visually see it turning, which made it undeniable that something paranormal was at play. One of the last significant incidents was the kitchen trash can lid, flipping open and closed on its own, several times, with no one nearby. Thank you so much, Chadley. I can just picture that pantry door handle turning. Ugh, how eerie. I can't imagine seeing something like that. This next submission comes from Nikki. Hi, Shelby. I sent in one of my fictional stories, but I'm sitting here listening to episode 266, and you just said something about doppelgangers, and it made me want to share my experiences. Only one is about a doppelganger. I'll start from the first experience I remember. When me and my brother were younger, we were in the room I shared with my mom, and we were wrestling, and suddenly, the bedroom door slammed. Me and my brother were freaked out and figured it was our mom getting annoyed with how loud we were being. None of the windows in the house were open. The front door/back door weren't open either. We walked into the living room and asked our mom if it was her. She said no, and she hadn't moved. I'm sure there were more experiences, but I don't remember any except after my brother passed away years later. After he passed, I had 2 more experiences in that house. One was I was in my bed, no longer sharing with my mom at that point, and felt something run its finger down my ankle. My feet were under the blanket, and the cats weren't allowed in my room because I always had to sleep with my door closed. And the second one was I was sitting home alone, and this glass chicken that was my grandma's fell off the top of the china chest. It wasn't on the edge. We didn't have any earthquakes. Now for where I live now. The Joann's I was working at was definitely haunted. There's a whole slew of things that happened there. There were times when I got my apron strings pulled when no one was behind me, and definitely didn't get caught on anything. I was closing with another woman, and the toilets flushed. I had checked them 20 minutes before to make sure no one was in there before we closed, and I didn't even really enter them. You could tell if someone was in the bathroom from the doorway. It freaked both of us out, and I had to double check the bathroom to make sure no one slipped past. We had swinging doors for the back room, and the store manager, the assistant manager, and myself were standing back there talking when the doors opened and stood open for several seconds. Both the assistant manager and I had experienced things. She said she heard a little girl laugh when she was there alone at 6 a.m., and no one was outside the building. She heard the carts move at the front of the store as well. Now for the doppelganger. I figured my apartment would be more haunted because I live across the street from 2 cemeteries. Not a lot happens though. Let me set up how my apartment is set up. When you walk in, it's a straight shot to the living room, kitchen to your immediate right. Before the living room is the combined dining area, and immediately to your left is the hallway. If you turn left, you're facing the bathroom. My room is the door to your left, and my son's room is to the right. When this incident happened, it was already dark out, and I was on the phone with a friend. I have a son, and he was about 13 years old when this happened. I just happened to look up and saw his elbow pass by my door. I was like, haha, why are you so pale? To my son. He didn't respond and went into his room. Except his bedroom light never went on. He doesn't like being in his room in the dark. I waited for at least 2 minutes and then sent my son a message on the Xbox and asked if he went into his room. He immediately came into my room and was like, no, I've been in the living room the whole time. I haven't seen it since, but it was definitely a freaky experience. Thank you so much, Nikki. Your Joann's definitely did sound haunted. I love Joann's. I love going there for crafty things. So if I was a ghost, I would like to haunt a Joann's. Yeah, that's for sure. I love that. And the doppelganger is very freaky. That's not our only doppelganger tonight, folks. That's ever since I've mentioned them on the show, so many of you have been sending in doppelganger stories, and they're all pretty terrifying, even if they're mild. When you really sit and think about them, I mean, what is it? Why do so many people... I feel like I have seen more doppelganger stories than like ghost stories. And maybe the doppelgangers are ghosts. Maybe the ghosts are doppelgangers. I don't know. I don't know how this world works, how this universe works, how these dimensions work. But something mysterious is afoot, and I will take every doppelganger story you have. And speaking of doppelganger stories, here comes another one from Mookie. Mookie describes this as a possible glitch in the Matrix or a doppelganger story. This one's pretty odd, so listen and you decide. I just recently started listening to your podcast, and because I'm such a fan of the paranormal, of course I started with your very first episode. I'll hate myself for missing out on any of them, and since it seems like you are reading some of your listeners' personal stories, why don't I share one of my earlier memories of the paranormal? I'm female, in my 30s, and from the Philippines. It was late 2000s when this happened. We lived in one of the apartment houses my grandparents owned. We were located on the second floor of a 2-bedroom apartment. Just a layout of the house. From the front door to your left will be the bedrooms. They are adjacent to each other, facing our living/dining room. A few steps from there, you'll get to the kitchen. And the only door you'll find from the kitchen will be our bathroom. Basically, it is a small house, perfect for a family of 4. The memories I've made with my family in that house are memories I go back to whenever I like to reminisce about my childhood. But most of those memories are similar to the one I'm about to share. We, me and my baby brother, were left at home because before Uber Eats were a thing or any of the delivery services available anywhere, my parents made it their thing. Aside from their primary jobs, they decided to do their customers' grocery shopping as their sideline. So I was left in charge. Since my brother at that time was still a baby, and all he ever did was sleep, I took advantage of that and took a nap myself. I woke up to the sound of my parents talking. I could hear the car engine from the outside, too. As I opened my eyes, the light in the bedroom was on, and I honestly can't remember if I left it on before passing out or not. But I remember falling asleep in the afternoon without needing the lights on. I could see my mom inside the room, facing the door, talking to my dad, who I assume was in the living room. My mom was wearing her hair in a braid. She had her infamous floral shorts, which still is alive to this day, and what I think was a gray shirt, same exact getup she left in. Since I just woke up, I listened to my parents' convo till they were done. My dad was asking for change to buy some cigarettes, and I can see my mom reaching for her purse from the back of the cabinet. Then I heard my dad making his way to the front door, and as this was happening, I started trying to get my mom's attention. Since my brother was just a few months old and still fast asleep, I whisper shouted to her to get her to acknowledge me and that I'm already awake. As I stood up to get close to her, she then started walking out the bedroom door, turning to her left. With the layout of the house in mind, it's a no-brainer. I can get to her. Not much distance to cover. She's just a few inches from me. And when I was about to touch her on her shoulder, she got out of the room and was no longer in front of me. Since my bedroom was just next door, I assumed she went there, since she's made a part of my room as her own personal storage closet. But as I took a left turn, I found my bedroom door closed, so I opened it. But then, the lights were off. Instinctively, I just turned the lights on, and of course, she wasn't there. To me, that didn't make any sense. I immediately peeped from the front door downstairs, since my dad had just stepped out to get some smokes. But of course, I didn't find him there. And from that time, my phone started ringing. Still remember owning a Nokia 3210 at that time, and since my brother was still fast asleep, I just ran and answered it quick as I could so I won't wake him up. Can you guess who was on the phone? My mom. She said that we'll be running late, got a few more orders to go, we'll order takeout for dinner instead. At that moment, I didn't feel scared, mostly confused. I honestly didn't know what had happened, if it had happened, and I did actually see what I saw. I told her that I saw her and asked her if she was home. She said she wasn't, of course, and just asked me if what was wrong. Told her that I did see her and I heard Dad. Told her I followed her to my room and she just disappeared. To appease me, she just said, "It could just be your guardian angel since you guys are home alone." And I just brushed it off like nothing happened. My reaction wasn't out of fear. It's just because I'm used to occurrences like this. Just another freaky encounter added to my list. When they came home, and when we were having our dinner, my mom asked what I saw. I explained to her exactly what I saw and how she looked, right down to what she was wearing at that time. I just heard her whisper to my dad, "I think she's seeing stuff too." Ooh, that was freaky. I would love to hear some of your other experiences you said you had, Mookie. That was incredible. I wonder what that is. I wonder what it is. And clearly your mom was seeing stuff too, or your dad, or both. Oh man, what is it? What are they? Who are they? Are they just like echoes of us? Just some sort of weird memory that plays maybe in our own minds. Maybe this is something that is in our heads, in our brains. Or is it physical? I don't know. What would have happened if you caught up with her? Could you ever catch up with her? Well, on to the next. This is not a doppelganger. This is a good old-fashioned ghost story, straight from rainy old England. This submission is from Carl. Hi. Fairly new listener here from rainy old England. I already said that, Carl. And I had a story I was wanting to share from my childhood. It's the reason I know there is stuff out there. I think you have to experience it to not be on the fence. What I'm about to say might not be the creepiest story you've received or the most exciting, but it genuinely haunts me to this day and still frightens me 15 years on. Where I grew up with my parents is a coastal town called Dungeness on the Kentish coast, an area known for shipwrecks, smugglers, and also wreckers. Wreckers were people who would stand on coastlines at night with lights and mimic lighthouses to draw in ships who would then crash, and the wreckers would loot the wreck. But that's me massively going off topic. Sorry. You don't have to be sorry, Carl. I didn't know what wreckers were, and that's really fascinating, so thank you for sharing. This all happened when I was, I think, 10 or 11. I come from a fairly spiritual and superstitious family. I still throw salt over my left shoulder if I spill it. Gotta keep the devil away. My bedroom used to be at the back of the house, with both walls touching the garden, and the walls were made of wood. It was a fairly shabby coastal house, quite old, 100 to 200 years, and lots of it built by hand. One autumn, I started to experience really intense sleep paralysis nearly every single night. The same thing every single time. I would wake up unable to move and feel a presence, something horrible, creeping in on me. I could actually feel the pressure in my head and the intense sense of fear just sort of creep on me. And I would always see a shadowy figure hovering to the left of my head above me. I could never look at it, just see it out of the corner of my eye and be so frightened. I would nearly always wake up in tears and often think I had woken up, for it only to happen again. This went on for what must have been a couple of months, nearly every single night. I was pretty damaged by it, and my mom would pray in my room and go to church, but it didn't seem to do anything. And one night, I didn't have sleep paralysis, and I woke up, looked to the right of my bed to get out and go for a wee, when I saw her. A girl, or small woman, stood next to my bed, covered in water. I can't remember much of what she looked like, just long hair and water. And I didn't feel in danger or scared. It certainly didn't feel like the sleep paralysis creature, but it was still frightening and shook me. I jumped up and ran out of that room. I went and slept in my twin sister's bed for the night and told my parents in the morning. My mom went to church and spoke to the vicar. He explained that it was the upcoming 200-year anniversary of a horrible shipwreck of refugees from mainland Europe, mainly women and children, whose ship crashed during a storm, and all of them died in this wreck, and that all down our street is meant to be bodies of those victims. The street and town is built on the beach's shingle. It's a massive shingle expanse. And this was really sad. We went to church and lit a candle and prayed. And it stopped. The sleep paralysis disappeared, and I never saw the girl again. I also found out many years later that my sister, whose room was next to mine, also had some experiences and didn't feel safe in my room. Most people just feel weird in that old room, not unsafe, just not relaxed, just on edge the whole time. Sleep paralysis has also creeped back in occasionally, and I sometimes still have it. But I can now combat it. I can force myself awake and prevent it from happening. Apart from one recent time, I have a small altar in my room with things to keep me safe. And one night, I experienced sleep paralysis and could not fight it off. And what I saw was something crawl out of my altar. I couldn't see what it was, just that it wasn't nice. And I often experience minor weird things that can be overlooked, but I do think there is something there, maybe following me about sometimes. But I have strong faith and don't fear it. It's my life and my home, not theirs. Sorry, that's really long, and I know that it's not exciting, but it is to me. I'd be happy for you to use it, but I would understand if you didn't. Many thanks, Carl. Well, Carl, I did use it, and there is nothing to be sorry about. That was frightening. Absolutely frightening. I can't believe you thought it wasn't, or you thought that I would think it wasn't, because, I mean, for one, I'm sure it was incredibly scary at the time, but I'm a little jealous. You got a 200-year-old shipwreck ghost who was like, I don't know, punking you for a few months. Like, that's something out of a novel. That's incredible. I mean, R.I.P. to the shipwreck ghosts. I feel bad for saying that. Please don't come haunt me for saying that it was cool. I just think it's really fascinating. And I can't even begin to touch the thing that crawled out of your altar, because what the absolute fuck? Like, what? Something crawled out of your altar? I wanted to say I also throw salt over my shoulder because I'm also superstitious in that way. Look at us, Carl. We have so much in common other than things crawling out of altars and sleep paralysis ghosts. I hope we don't ever have those in common. No offense. Okay, moving on. This next submission is from Din. And, well, have you ever seen the movie It Follows? If you have, you'll want to hear this strange tale. If you haven't, please keep listening to. It's for everybody. Okay, I'll shut up now. Well, other than when I read the story, but Shelby, in my commentary will shut up now. Okay, anyway, on to the story. Hi, Shelby. I listened to your podcast on and off, and always particularly enjoyed the true story submissions, as well as the dark Reddit ones, and when you dive into some particular oddities. I appreciate the honesty, by the way, Din. Anyway, like the one from the other month about people disappearing or appearing, love the overall wide variety of topics. I thought I'd share this story of mine because I figured it might interest you. I don't believe in ghosts or the like, but what I experienced here sticks in my mind. There's no shortage of rational explanations for it, but I still find myself coming back to this feeling, a bit spooked by it. Many years ago, when I was still a teenager, I had this nice, comfortable chair in my room next to the window. I'd sit there with my laptop on my knees, and our 2 cats would frequently be lounging on the headrest behind me. We were living on the 2nd floor, and the window was overlooking a lawn, a walk path with streetlights illuminating it, and a block of houses on the other side of that path. One night, at around 10:30, the younger cat, who was still pretty much a kitten, got up to paw and scratch the window. I didn't think much of it, figured she'd just caught sight of an insect and was trying to get to it. She kept at this for a couple of minutes, then stopped and bolted out of the room, which I attributed to kitten zoomies. While I was the only one awake, nothing was amiss, and I was just enjoying being online. Then I went to sleep around 11. But the next night, at around 10:30, the kitten starts pawing at the window again. She's up on her hind legs, scratching and pawing, meowing softly. Then, after a couple of minutes, she runs out of the room again. I chalked this up to a funny coincidence, and it really could have been. Except, 10:30 the next night, it happened again. And the night after that, at 10:30, she was still pawing at the window. So, at this point, I'm getting a little spooked. When it happens again and again, I stand next to her and peer out the window, trying to see what she's trying to get at. She seems to be looking up and out, not down towards anything, but I can't see what is going on at all. It's late fall, so it's always dark out around this time, and you can't really see anything other than the path illuminated by the streetlight. And there's nothing blocking the window, no tree nearby for birds to hang out in or anything like that. And the next night, when it's nearing 10:30, I can feel myself tense with anticipation until, you guessed it, she gets up and scratches at the glass, like clockwork. After about a week of this, I have a dream. In the dream, I'm standing by my window looking down at the path. A figure stands beneath the streetlight, but it's pure black, like the light has no effect on it. I look at the figure, and I know the figure is looking at me, even though I can't see a face. I don't like this figure at all. It has a malicious feeling to it, and I don't feel safe looking at it. I look away and take a step back from the window. But when I glance back at it a second later, the figure is pressed right up against the glass, even though we're on the 2nd floor. This close, the figure is still pure black, but it has white, staring eyes and a row of white teeth, stretched in a wide, unsettling grin. It has its hands against the glass and its face pressed close as it stares at me. I scream and run backwards towards my door, scared to turn away from this entity, but my door is closed and for some reason, I can't open it. I keep my eyes on the figure as it slowly phases through the glass. I sink to my knees against the door and think that I'm going to die. This thing is going to kill me. It enters my room and takes slow, deliberate steps towards me, still with the toothy, malicious grin, intent on me, and it leans over me as I curl up and cry. I wake up before anything happens. I wake up with horrible feeling that something has really entered my room and that my cat tried to warn me and I failed to understand, and so I've failed to protect myself. I feel pretty strange for most of the day, but school and friends distract me just fine until before I know it, I'm sitting in the chair with my laptop and it's nearing 10:30 again. And I find myself hoping that my cat will scratch at the window again, because if she does, then it's just her strange behavior and whatever happened in my dream isn't real. So I wait for her to do it. And she doesn't. She never scratched at the window again. So for a couple of days, I feel truly unsettled, really wondering if I'm carrying something now. But nothing happens. Everything seems fine. And I can explain the dream easy enough by paranoia or my brain having spooked itself. So I let it go, and I don't think about it for many years. But then, fast forward until I'm in my mid-20s. I've met a guy on Tinder and we agree to meet up. We go for a walk around his neighborhood and he's really sweet. So we go to his apartment and just hang out and chat for a while. And he has this beautiful cat that I give plenty of scritches. It's a nice date, so we agree to meet again a couple days later. When we do, he tells me that after he'd sent me on my way the first night we'd met and gone to sleep, his cat started scratching on the bedroom window, and he had a dream about a dark entity that entered his room through that window, stood over him while he lay frozen, and then he woke up with a heavy, unsettled feeling. It only happened over the course of one night for him, but I have to wonder if maybe I carried something all that time without knowing after all, and now this sweet Tinder guy is forced to carry it until he passes it to someone else. Lots of this can be chalked up to coincidence and the like, but like I said, I can't quite shake this encounter, so I'm curious what you'll think of it, if anything at all. Well, Din, I do have some thoughts on this story. First of all, I would like to know if you can email me, it'd be great. Did you tell this man your story on your Tinder date? Was he aware of this before he had this? Because I don't believe you mentioned whether you told him or not. Probably, I'm going to assume you didn't, because if you didn't, that is very weird and very strange. Maybe you were carrying something with you. I don't know how you passed it on, or I don't know anything like that, but maybe some of our more magic-y folks out there could have some answers. I have heard of, things being passed on, but I don't know. That's my one question, is whether you told him about this happening during your date or not. Because that would change my thoughts, I think, a lot if you had told him. Because then I would think it was maybe just a dream influenced by your story, kind of like having a nightmare after watching a scary movie. But if you didn't tell him, then that is some high strangeness right there. I don't know. So, I've saved quite a doozy for last. This is from Lisa, who said in her email to me, "This happened to me when I was 16 years old and lived in Pensacola, Florida in 1978. It's a real shocker. I hope it takes your breath when you get to the big reveal. I was in denial, and maybe still am somewhat, when I figured it out. The story is titled The Laundry Room and is 100% true. No embellishments." And I will tell you, it did take my breath away. So here it is, folks. Let's visit the laundry room. It was the weekend. Yay. Except it was also laundry day. A day that occurred more often than normal for me, since I only had 3 or 4 semi-cool Christian school appropriate outfits. But on that particular Saturday, there was something more concerning than dirty school clothes, and my worries were valid. It was February and there was a nip in the air, so I had secretly borrowed Mom's robin's egg blue mohair sweater to wear to school, and a lunchtime food accident left me panic-stricken. This was only a big deal because it may have been Mom's only link to her youth and happier days before she had 4 demanding kids to ignore. I slipped out of bed and turned to do a quick cover straightening before tiptoeing past my sleeping sister, careful not to step on the landmine that was her side of the room. Stumbling into the bathroom, I stared at my face in the toothpaste-splattered mirror. Not too bad for 16. Clear skin, thick, long brown hair, roundish face. I quickly brushed my teeth and my hair, parting it carefully down the center in the style so popular in 1978. I wasn't getting too fixed up, since I was only going to be in the motel laundry room alone. No one to impress on an early Saturday morning. The maids wouldn't even arrive for a few hours. The Royal House, the name alone brought up images of elegance, class, and style. This was not the case. It was an off-the-beaten-path dump, located on a dilapidated stretch of Mobile Highway. Vermin ran rampant from the back of the strip mall, running along one side, and hobos camped in a dense thicket of trees on the other side. New owners, milking every last dime out of the failing business before shutting it down, had canceled the monthly pest control service to save money, which anyone living in Florida knew was the kiss of death for a business. Nothing worse than turning on a bathroom light at 2 a.m. to catch a swarm of German cockroaches running for cover. Even so, there were some good things about living with my family of 6 in the manager's quarters of a roach and rat-infested motel. At the age of 13, when my 2 brothers and my sister and I were swimming in the motel pool located in the center of the motel's horseshoe-shaped complex, I met Chubby Checker. He and his band had obviously fallen upon some hard times staying at the Royal House and playing the 1975 Pensacola Interstate Fair venue. He even invited me to tag along, which was both weirdly flattering and sketchy. I declined, of course, but only because my dad said no, questioning the integrity of the band. My thoughts came back to my laundry situation and Mom's mohair sweater. How could I wash it and sneak it back into her dresser drawer, currently laden with threadbare panties and discolored nursing bras, even though her baby was in elementary school? The absence of her prized possession would be glaring. I grabbed the sweater along with my Christian school-appropriate separates and headed towards the shabby motel lobby. Dad was there, manning the switchboard. "See you later, alligator," I said, and he did not disappoint, answering, "After a while, crocodile." The covered walkway was 100 yards of exterior motel room doors on my way to the laundry room, located at the back of the property. Walking quickly, I kept my eyes averted from the guest doors. Seeing a beer-bellied nude traveling salesman was not on my bucket list. Not now. Not ever. Still single-mindedly making my way to the refuge of a quiet, unoccupied space to get a break from the motel's crowded living quarters, I heard a door open and then shut behind me. Not a concern, probably just a guest getting another 6-pack out of his car. Continuing on, almost there, forgot to get the key, but it wouldn't matter since the doorknob lock was broken anyway. But I knew the secret. Just a quick jiggle left and right, and the lock gave, allowing me to enter. I immediately headed to the back, where the hand wash sink agitator was located, and started filling it with hot water and detergent. I thought hot water would probably get the stain out of the sweater, especially if I turned the agitator on high and swished the daylights out of it. I left the mohair to fend for itself, steaming and swishing while I tossed the rest of my clothing in the top-load washer. Cool water for this. It wasn't nearly as stained, and it made sense that a cotton polyester blend was less sturdy than the fur sheared off a grazing animal. I revisited the sink, the agitator still grinding away, with my back to the open space that was the drying and folding portion of the laundry room. I pulled the precious sweater from its hot water bath to discover the stain was gone. This would have been exciting, except for the fact that it was toddler size. Shrunken, clean and shrunken. Even if I got it back into the dresser drawer undetected, my crime would be discovered eventually. It was curtains. Goodbye, cruel world. Sayonara.
Lock the door.
A voice boomed somewhere behind me. Or was it above me? It seemed to reverberate from the walls. I dropped the sweater and spun, the hair standing up on the back of my neck and goosebumps rising on my arms. Seeing no one, I detected stealthy footsteps heading my way from outside the double-side doors, the unlocked double-side doors. Moving quickly, I threw the slat of wood down into the barn door-style brackets to lock it, then stepped back. The door jiggled, someone wanting in, followed by a light knock, then a heavy pound. I was instantly filled with an unreasonable level of terror. Someone was merely knocking on the side door, but I dashed to the phone hanging on a wall and dialed the front office. It rang for an eternity. Come on, switchboard, come on, switchboard. Sweat beaded on my brow as I started to panic, thinking at any minute the intruder would come bursting through the front door with the broken lock. An insistent tap, tap, tap coming from the window behind me permeated the silence, and I turned, a sense of dread invading my insides. A handsome, smiling face, accompanied by a hand pointing at the double doors, mouthed, "Open the door." He noticed the phone in my hand, Dad's voice finally on the line asking, "What's up?" "Hurry down here now. Someone's trying to get in the laundry room and I'm scared," I breathlessly whispered, while glancing over my shoulder at the man who was no longer there. There was nothing but silence on the other end, and I pictured my dad trying to decide if he could leave the office unattended while he came to investigate. A weary sigh escaped him. "Be right there." A few minutes later, the front door opened, and Dad was standing there puzzled. He patted his windblown comb-over back into submission, then said, "I didn't see anybody outside. Are you sure?" I would have chalked it up to nerves brought on by the sweater disaster, but the man left before Dad saw him. Suspicious. That disembodied voice, "Lock the door," was in the back of my mind still. But I put it on the back burner and focused on planning my funeral instead. I was going to need it when my mom finally got around to opening that drawer with the seriously jacked up undergarments and the tiny robin's egg blue mohair sweater. 2 or 3 years later, my college years, I caught a glimpse of a familiar, smiling face on a TV news channel in passing. But there was no time to stop and watch. I was running late to class. Years after graduation, I was sitting on the flight attendant jump seat, reading the first few chapters of a true crime novel by Anne Rule. Interesting and intriguing, but it was forgotten, left neatly folded up in the jump seat when my crew deplaned, rushing to meet our next flight. It was a January evening in 1989, and I was curled up in an oversized recliner chair watching the news with my sweet 2-year-old daughter cuddled up under my arm. I rubbed my flat belly, thinking of the second little baby just beginning to grow inside, my mind temporarily wandering from the news story at hand. A few words, execution, Florida, serial killer, caught my attention, and I gasped as I began to comprehend what I was seeing in front of me. A reality set in, one I should have discovered years earlier. A handsome, smiling face, a news story of young ladies murdered, and Ted Bundy, a serial killer, executed. I was looking into the eyes of a murderer, a killer's face, the face belonging to the man who was tapping on that laundry room window 11 years earlier when the booming voice saved my life. And that's where we will leave it off this week, folks. I can't even believe the end of that story. Can you? I did not see it coming. I should have known with Florida and the timing, 1978, but I didn't. And you were right, Lisa. My breath was taken away. I cannot believe it. What was that booming voice? Who was that? Was it a guardian angel? Was it an ancestor of yours who was doing you assault? Maybe it was just the resident ghost hanging out in the laundry room. Knew what Mr. Bundy was up to. I don't know. That was pretty wild. Maybe just your own internal instincts just feeling something because it knew a predator was nearby. Like, that's pretty wild. And RIP to your mom's mohair sweater. That sounded beautiful. Robin's egg blue mohair sweater sounds very cute. Thank you so much for writing in. And remember, if you'd like to comment, tell me what you think of any of these stories, any of your theories. A lot of these listeners ask you for your own theories. So please follow me on social media at scareyoutosleep for Instagram, Twitter, and there's a Facebook group you can join as well. And please tell me your theories. I'll post, every week I post a little post for each episode, talk about it underneath, create your own post, do whatever. This is so fast. This was a good one. It's a great bunch of stories. It really was. What a way to come back after my week off. Thank you so much to all of you who submitted your stories. It is very hard to be vulnerable and let the world know or just talk about these creepy, weird experiences that you go through, because some of them are just so inexplicable. And like, so many of you even give the qualifier of, I don't even believe in the paranormal, but I can't explain this weird thing that happened to me. And that's what I love. I swear, when people ask me if I'm into ghosts, it's not even that I'm into ghosts. Again, I love the term high strangeness because I don't know what any of it is. And I just love strange things. And as you've seen, not just me, but a lot of you have moved more towards just weird, like, time slips and doppelgangers and things like that. It's not just apparitions, man. It's not just ghosts. I don't know what it is. So thank you for coming on this weird journey with me. You've made me weirder. Hopefully I've made you weirder. Let's all get weirder together, shall we? Remember, and I hope to see some of you tomorrow. This is getting out a little late, so you probably won't hear this in time, but Hellmouth Con in Torrance is happening tomorrow, and I will be there. And if you're there and you see me walking around, please come say hello. I don't have a booth or anything. I'm going to be doing a panel at 4 o'clock. I believe it's on podcasting. I will say the schedule was a little bit late. No shade. Conventions are very hard to put together, but I just learned like right now, and it's almost 9 o'clock the day before, like when my schedule is and everything. And as far as I know, I'm going to be doing a panel at 4. And other than that, I'll be just wandering around, having a good time. Be there with some of my pod friends, but mostly just kind of, chilling on my own, poking around, taking some video. I'm going to be trying to take some video for all of you to put together a little video for YouTube, because again, trying to get back into YouTube, and a lot of you really liked my video when I did the live show, and I put together a little bits of footage from the live show, so I'll be doing that again, just some footage from Hellmouth Con for those of you who can't be there. Oh, and if you are a Patreon member or would like to be a Patreon member, I did release a bonus episode this week, and it is a Ramble You to Sleep, a little life update about moving, and I told my own personal ghost story on there about something that happened to me in this apartment after I moved in that I still can't explain, and I don't know what it was, and it was very creepy. And yeah, so if you'd like to hear that, go to Patreon, become $3 member and up, and you can hear that bonus episode where I talk about my own little ghostly experience, and I ramble on about all kinds of other stuff like moving and life, and the fact that I lost an entire box of kitchen stuff somewhere along the way in all of the things that have happened in my life. And I'm very sad about it. So that is one thing, moving into the baking portion. Baking's been kind of hard because I lost, like I said, an entire box of my kitchen utensils. I don't have a rolling pin. I didn't have measuring cups or measuring spoons. There's a lot of things that I'm realizing now I don't have, like a can of, like I had to get a can opener, vegetable peeler, like just a lot of basics. So I'm very sad about that, and it's costly having to rebuild, because when you build a kitchen over years, you build it slowly, and now I'm having to kind of rebuild more quickly, that or just go without, and it sucks. But as I said in my ramble, a lot of this stuff had memories attached, and now I'm just gonna get new things and attach new good memories to them, and that's, I think, beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna go. Oh wait, I didn't tell you what I baked this week. I baked a peach and strawberry crumble pie. It was fantastic. I have the recipe if you'd like it, as always. I used hold on, I wanted to get the right recipe set website. I used sweetrecipes.com, their recipe. And recipes is spelled RECIPEAS, like a pea, like a vegetable. But yeah, it's a peach and strawberry crumble pie. Fantastic. Oh my God, it was so good. I love crumble toppings. Like, I love a Dutch apple pie over a regular apple pie because I just love the crumble topping. And this was very, very good. Peaches and strawberries together. I mean, it tastes like summer. It's incredible. I highly recommend making it, especially while strawberries are in season. And they're so cheap right now, or at least in California. I don't know about the rest of you. We grow a lot of strawberries here, so during strawberry season, strawberries are very cheap. If you can hear that scratching, that was Clara deciding that I am done for the night, and it is time for me to go pay attention to her. So I'm going to do that. Again, please, if you, there's no obligation to, but I appreciate from the bottom of my heart if you do become a Patreon subscriber. Again, I talked about it in that my ramble, but I really appreciate, for all of you helping me get back on my feet, and my life is incredible, and it's going nowhere but up. It's going up, 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 and I'm very grateful to all of you, and I'm sending you all love and good energy. And also, let's see, follow the show on social media. If you have your own stories you'd like to submit, be it fiction or nonfiction, send it to scareyoutosleep@gmail.com. And you can follow me personally on social media at Shelby B. Novak. All right, I will see you next week. Go get some sleep. Sweet dreams.